Hi, it's Dr. Simeon Roger for the Leader Revolution, and welcome to the video. We're going to be talking right now about the crisis in Ukraine. This is the first of our series of videos about it. And today, as you see from the title, we're going to be talking about crisis leadership. So we're looking at lessons that we as leaders can learn from what we're seeing. And we'll be talking about a few aspects of this. Crisis leadership is one. We'll be talking about various aspects of strategic decision making and what to expect going down the road. I'll also probably put out something analyzing the military situation because, as a military analyst, I've been asked that many times what the heck's going on. But that'll be another video. And right now, it is day 6, the end of day 6 in Ukraine, actually, Ukrainian time, probably about 8 o'clock at night there in Kyiv. So day 6 has come and gone, and the situation on the ground is more or less stable, but building up to something that doesn't look terribly good. In any case, let's talk about crisis leadership. The question we often get is crisis leadership different from other types of leadership? Well, without going into all the examples of crisis leadership that I saw when I was in the emergency management field, most of which, by the way, were total disasters for the companies involved, and only one of which that I can remember was absolutely stellar. We'll talk about those later, but is crisis leadership different? Yes, it is different. It can be more demanding, and you will sometimes find a leader who is fairly competent in normal times, but when a crisis hits, the person can sometimes be a complete disaster. They will actually add to the problem rather than fix it or allow others to do so. But the question right now is, what can we learn about crisis leadership? And as you may have guessed, mainly from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is doing an outstanding job of crisis leadership. This man who was an actor and a stand-up comic, who would have thought? Here he is doing an incredible job. And the first thing we can learn from him definitely is he leads from the front. So he is putting himself in the line of fire. He has refused to evacuate Kyiv. He is still there. He's been asked to evacuate to Western Europe, to the US, to at least to Lviv in the west of Ukraine, but he said no. Nope, not doing that. So he is there leading from the front, and people see this, and this is incredibly inspiring. And he's putting himself at risk, and not only is he putting himself at risk, but other people are too. Former President Petro Poroshenko doing the same thing. You'll see him giving videos or doing video interviews wearing a flak jacket only 2 to 4 kilometers from various Russian troops. And again, these people are doing a fantastic job of leading from the front. Very inspiring. The second thing you'll notice from Zelensky is he maintains constant communication. Very important in a crisis. Constant communication. He is putting out videos many times a day. He is in constant communication. So there is never a lack of information about what's going on. And not only that, he is providing not just information, but reassurance and moral support. And he knows how important that is. It's important for him to be seen, to be out there, and to be where he is, even though it's a risk. And it's a risk to life and limb every moment he's there. So the third thing is, when he's putting out this communication, it's varied communication. It's not all the same. It's many types of communication to various types of audiences. So sometimes he's addressing the Ukrainian people, but sometimes the Ukrainian military, sometimes the European Union or NATO, sometimes even the Russian population or the Russian armed forces. And in which case he'll speak Russian because he's fluent in both languages, as are so many Ukrainians. And this is what's going on. So he has these varied communications tailored to the audience, and everything about the communication is tailored. You'll see his dress, his deportment, his tone match the communication in question, whichever kind it is. The backdrop he has typically matches that as well. If he needs to be seen in a flak jacket and camo, and outside in Kiev where people can identify where he is, he's going to do that. If he needs to be giving a very serious message, very serious press conference, he'll have the appropriate background and the appropriate dress and the appropriate tonality. So he's very, very good at this. And the next thing is he's very well practiced at stage presence, as you might gather. I mean, with a background like an actor and a stand-up comic. Yes, he knows how to do this very well. In this sense, strangely enough, he's kind of like Ronald Reagan, who, whatever his immense flaws, was a fantastic communicator. And Zelensky is too. He's a really good communicator because he has practiced. This is not his first, time in front of a camera. You never want to uh, to be put in this situation unless you have really been well trained and you know how to handle yourself in front of a camera. You know how to address an audience. This is very, very important. Then he's also very inspirational in his messages. He comes up with some great one-liners, things like I don't need a ride, I need bullets," or whatever it was, something like that when he was offered evacuation. I don't need a ride, I need guns, I need bullets, I need something to fight with. Um, and finally, the final lesson, a very critical one, he lets his people do their jobs. In other words, he is not busy micromanaging. He's not telling the armed forces what to do. He lets them go do what they do. The same thing with the first responders. He lets them do what they do. He's letting people manage, run the disaster. He knows it's going to be a shit show. Okay, he knows that. So he's letting the civil authorities deal with helping evacuation of civilians, with dealing with the aftermath of artillery strikes and various types of skirmishes, missile attacks, and the whole thing. He's focusing on what he needs to focus on, which is the big strategic picture, and especially the relationship and the messaging and getting help from the European Union and NATO. He knows that. So in other words, he's playing on his level, which is exactly what he's supposed to do. And this may sound obvious, but it's not, because usually when human organizations get into a disaster, the first thing that happens is the people at the top try to manage the details of the disaster, the details of the response, which is the last thing they should do. And if you look at the disaster recovery plans or emergency management plans of so many commercial entities these days, for example, um, and even, as a matter of fact, various levels of government, they'll actually have material in their plan that helps them deal with their senior executive. In other words, they're always devoting a certain amount of time and energy to making sure that the people at the top are not interfering with the tactical level decision making. And it's a tragedy, but this is the problem. Leaders are not trained in what to do when things go south, so to speak. And they revert to what they think they know, which is details, but in fact, they do not know how to run an emergency. They may have gone to all the trouble of signing off on emergency management plans, business continuity plans. They may have gone to all the trouble of setting up an emergency operations center, training the people in it, and still every time they want to be in the weeds. Big problem. Zelensky is not doing that. He has absolutely made sure this is not happening. So that's really it. Those are the lessons you can learn about crisis leadership from Zelensky and from Poroshenko. And by the way, if you're watching the YouTube version of this video, we're going to put in a link to a video of Poroshenko giving an interview. And the reason we're doing that is not just because it has an inspirational message. Yeah, you can watch it to the end if you want the inspirational message. But if you want just the comic relief, watch the first 60 seconds and look at the guy on the left. That's all I'm going to say about it. Everybody needs comedy relief in the middle of this horrible situation. That's it for now. I'm Dr. Simeon Roger for the Leader Revolution. We'll have another one coming at you very soon. Thanks. Bye.